I'm Rachel Forsyth from the Centre for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. This short video is about using games in staff development, with particular reference to a board game that I developed to look at course approval, course validations. So first of all, what do we mean by game-based learning, or why do we have a game? The reason for this particular game was partly in order to share with participants some data that we'd collected as part of a large JISC project on curriculum design. And although we did write a formal report, I just thought it would be quite a nice way of sharing that data and getting people to actually use it by comparing the data that we'd collected with their real experiences. And the reason for doing that through a game rather than any other kind of activity is that a game gives a really safe place to explore decision making. And when you're talking about the regulatory aspects of course design, then people quite often make mistakes or get very anxious about particular things. And if you're doing that in a game environment and something goes wrong in the game, then nobody has responsibility. It's quite a lot more fun than it is if you make that mistake in real life. So a game's a really good way of getting people to explore problems, which they can then transfer their knowledge to the real world from that, but without feeling threatened or anxious by it. A good game needs to have clear goals, so in this case it was to play against another team and finish your course proposal before them. It needs to be fun, it needs to have some kind of a narrative so that people feel that they're progressing along a particular route. I think a good game also needs to give opportunities for collaboration and sharing of ideas. So the game that you'll see in this video is called Accreditation. And the key underlying message of this is that when you're writing a new course, there are often compromises between speed, or the time you have to spend on it, and the quality of the finished product. And so the game itself looks at different dilemmas that you might meet along the way of designing a course, and it gives points or progression points or quality points according to how well you answer the question. So a progression point will allow you to move around the board, so that's speed, and a quality point will allow you to show how good your course is. So the game is a small part of the overall package of activities that people are doing in relation to this. And for this particular example, I tend not to set it up in any way. I just put out the game and people start talking about it. But then what we do afterwards is we debrief by talking about the dilemmas that people encountered and what they would do in real life rather than within the constraints of the game if those things came up, or more importantly how they would avoid difficult situations arising. Now in this particular game there are also elements of chance that come in, like losing your laptop with a copy of all the course documentation on it, or somebody being ill, or getting a job somewhere else and leaving you in the lurch and that kind of thing. So there are always things that you can't anticipate directly, but it gives an opportunity to discuss those possibilities and for people to be more prepared when they might arise. We usually play for about 15 or 20 minutes. It's unusual for anyone to have completely finished by then, even though one of the rules is you can make up new rules and cheat. So it's really not about getting to the end point, although when people start playing the game that's what they think they're aiming for, but actually the point of the game is to have a sensible discussion about the issues that might arise. So in conclusion, I think board games can be quite a good way of getting people to engage with what might otherwise be quite dry research data, as in the case of this particular game that I've just mentioned. Also really good for getting open conversations going about situations which people may feel a little bit sensitive about.
Thank you for watching this Good Practice Exchange film. You can find lots more teaching ideas and resources on our website.